Let's stay then with the situation in Russia and Ukraine, because the countries have been trading attacks on each other's grain warehouses, and that is prompting now a significant concern about the rising price of food around the world. Let's speak to Philippe Turle about this. He's our international affairs editor. And Philippe, in Russia, the impact of this is particularly clear already, isn't it? There's been a number of Ukrainian attacks on its grain storage hubs on the Black Sea, and particularly the port of Novorossiysk. That was this week. So just tell us a little bit then about what's been happening.
OK, well, there have been two further attacks overnight. The first one was a Russian attack on Ukraine's Ishmael port area in southern Odessa. This is a port area that handles grain. The second one was Ukraine hit Russia's Baltic Sea port of Ust-Luga, which is also used to ship grain in and out of the country, and oil as well. What the Ukrainians are trying to do here is to increase the pressure on the Russians by bombing oil installations, power installations, sending drones into the country, to increase the pressure on the Russians to come to the negotiating table to end the war. And that is the reason behind that. Russia is doing tit-for-tat bombing raids against the Ukrainians in a bid to push Ukraine also and gain more time and more territory. But this is all having a very negative effect on grain supplies. If you look at, for example, some of the figures that have been issued in recent days, grain exports from Russia are expected to be down by over 20% this year, up to the month of July. That's according to data from industry sources. Analysts are predicting that Russian grain exports will hit a 10-year low this month. And when you look at the Ukrainian side, remember, Ukraine is one of the leading grain exports in the world, grain exporters. Shipments from there for export are down 76% from this time last year to only 201,000 metric tons. This is due to the blockade of key Black Sea ports. So what we're seeing here is the pressure on both countries from the Ukrainian side and from the Russian side, having a knock-on effect on the exports coming out of those countries of grain. And that's bad news for not only Russia and for Ukraine, because they are seeing a fall in revenue into their countries. Remember, this is exactly what the Ukrainians want to achieve on the Russians, to put the stranglehold on their war effort and to make sure they run out of money. But it's also having a knock-on effect on the rest of us in the world.
Right, exactly, because food prices may well rise as a result of this. Well,
that is true. And what we're seeing here is a pretty menacing effect on us here in Europe. Remember, I don't know whether you know how hot it is today in Paris, but obviously you do. 38 degrees, I think. This is like the fifth heat wave where we've had temperatures knocking almost on the door of 40 degrees around France. It's having a devastating effect on crops, on wheat, on what France is producing, and not only on France, but also in other European countries. There is a massive drought taking place at the moment. It hasn't rained really in France since the month of May in many areas, where it's like a scorched earth because everything is dying. So there's going to be a demand for increased imports of grain and food materials. The OZK United Grain Company is a trade and logistics operator of agricultural products. It captures the export potential of Russian grain on the world market. Now, it says in 2025 to 26, 60 million tons of Russian grain was exported. In this year, from 2026 to 2027, that is going to fall to 21.7 million. So it's 3 times less grain coming out of Russia over the next 12 months compared to the previous 12 months. And it could fall even more as a result of the conflict, which means that grain is not going to come into Europe when Europe badly needs grain imports. There is also a high cost. Potatoes in the Netherlands, they are falling because there is a lot less being grown. Corn in Bosnia, that is also sharply down. So it's going to have a knock-on effect on Europe. GDP is going to fall, they estimate, by 1% for 2026, or about 180 billion euros. So the war in Ukraine is not doing any favours for the rest of us who are more and more dependent on imports of grain.
All right, thank you very much. Philippe Turle for us there.